This is a report from a non-invasive health assessment scan that has been done by AOScan Mobile is the technology. This is a company I'm working with. If you've been watching my channel and know who I am, I do reviews and research and work with many different companies. And in the bioresonance sort of radionic domain of technologies, of how you can actually look at different biomarkers and parameters in the body. This particular brand is king of that, and that's based on looking at many different technologies over the years that do all kinds of scans and different functions like that. This is a technology out of Russia. So I'm just going to show you how I would go through a vitals report. It's called a vitals report, and what you're looking at right here is something that goes through 550 different items. This is the interface of that technology that comes on a mobile device and also on a tablet as well. And so you're able to just simply do all these different sorts of really unique scans, and you can also tune up and do optimizations. And I actually did this scan remotely or virtually with the client, and over the many years the company has been doing this. And I've also personally followed it up with dozens of practitioners using this technology. What we have all found now is that the accuracy, effectiveness, efficacy, etc. of this technology is just as good in person, connected to the device, or remotely. So that should get your wheels churning. Now what I did was the vitals scan right here, and whoops, gotta refresh the sign in here. This is how you would do it. It's very simple. Anyways, so I did the vitals report, and I actually did the full complete vitals. So as I said before, that's 550 different items, which you'll see here in a minute. You just click on that, you hit your scan. And believe it or not, it takes just a little over a minute. It used to take a lot longer on the original system, so things have progressed a lot over the years, technology and just working on the system itself. So it really is just super fast now, unbelievably fast. One thing they just added in recently was meridians, which is really helpful. Anyway, so you'll see all these different systems, how they look like. Once you do an actual thing, you'll hit reports, and you can email it to yourself or you can email it to the client. And it shows up actually a couple different ways. This is the not fancy looking way. This is just the downloadable Excel document, but they also have a hyperlink to a much more visually appealing version of the report as well. But I'm just going to dive into some of these aspects here to show you. We are finding that basically the accuracy is about anywhere from 80 to 90%, depending on what the value is or the biomarker. And that's compared to what? Well, compared to doing actual like lab testing and or other sorts of diagnostic methods out there. Now, we're not claiming that this is actually a diagnostic method, because technically the way that it works, it would not qualify for such a title. But in just terms of giving you that assessment of accuracy, that's what our practitioners and people and users are comparing their reports to existing sorts of more mainstream, let's say, testing, traditional sorts of tests. And look, we can talk about the science all day long and how interesting it is, and if you don't believe that this is capable of being this accurately, non-invasively, and quickly, that's fine. You just have to test it out for yourself. That's what we always say. We have a lot of, not a lot, but we do sometimes have some practitioners or people that say, I don't know if I believe this. And we just say, hey, just like run these tests on some of your existing cases that you may have, or yourself. And if you already know a little something about your symptoms or conditions or testing that you've already gotten, see how it matches up. And 9 times out of 10, these individuals become believers, and they may not understand all of the physics behind it and all that kind of stuff, all the biophysics. And that's fine, because they're happy with the ridiculous amount of information that you can get here in a short period of time, and what you can do with that. I mean, you could track progress every single week, and charge the person $5 instead of it costing like thousands every month. So there's a lot we can do with it. So I'm just going to roll into it. This individual is 76 years old, and I would say that in general, the types of results that we see here, a lot of these biomarkers and stuff we'll see more commonly in that age group, actually, with males. So it's not too out of the norm. But I'm just going to kind of walk through this just for also individuals that may have this technology or be curious about the reports and how I would interpret some things based off of knowing this individual and a little bit more about their lifestyle and health issues and things like that. So anyways, by the way, if you have any questions about this technology, you can just find my link basically below in the YouTube video, and that's how you can look into it, look at the pricing if you want to purchase it, or if you just had a bunch of questions or you wanted to get a test from me, something like that, we could always set that up. But it's just amazing technology that I think could really do a lot of good for the industry, the health world. Anyway, so HDL, LDL. Now, what's nice in the when you click on the hyperlinked version of this report in the email, when you actually click on these different items here, if an individual doesn't understand what they mean, it'll actually open up an explanation, which I think is like totally cool. So that's what happens with the hyperlinked version, not in the Excel version of the report. But anyways, so some of these parameters you may have to Google if you don't have a health background, things like that. But so one thing that we were noticing in the reports was there was some cholesterol issues, and how the body is handling fats was not going so well. And so we see those different things popping up here. And really a lot of different things here going on. Right off the bat, I was looking into some niacin and a liver protocol for starting to improve things there digestively. And the other thing that we see with triglycerides many times is the link between those sorts of issues and also blood sugar / insulin resistance or insulin pancreas issues. Insulin, blood sugar, pancreas, these sorts of things all are interconnected. Also bitter melon extract protocol is fantastic as well in terms of regulating blood sugar and actually helping with adiponectin and turning white fat into brown fat and all kinds of fascinating things. There's a lot of things going on with the blood in general. The creation of blood, hemoglobin, the ability to actually carry oxygen, some issues with iron. A lot of this was coming from the combination of pathogenic factors, some spleen issues, which we saw pop up in this, needing to build the blood more, and also just straight up iron deficiency because of the diet. Was also recommending some standard process supplements for building the blood, iron, also just straight up heme iron, which is the form of iron you normally get from meat. And if this individual has not been consuming a lot of like animal sourced good sources of iron, heme iron, this is actually fairly common, and this can lead to some hypoxic conditions, not getting enough oxygen and having some inflammation and other issues. So that's one thing that we're seeing here. Just a lot of different blood factors that are going on here, including some key amino acid deficiencies that are interrelated also there. We'll just scroll down. There were some major DHA, EPA deficiencies. Again, I know that because of their diet. Fairly common. Due to also some of the other fatty acid issues we'll see here, and the liver having a strain, the cardiovascular system having a strain, so a lot of excess inflammation we're seeing. There's a greater need for omega-3s in general, so the ratios are all off. It's fairly common. They call them essential fatty acids for a reason, people. So they're not optional. Oh, do I need to get more omega-3 in my diet? Yeah. It's not really like you can't go without that, with actually supplementing with that, or at least getting enough from like small fish or other sources. So they're essential fats, and they play a big role in hormone formation. And we'll scroll down later here and we'll see a lot of endocrine hormone issues as well. So we're missing a lot of the fundamental building blocks as well due to the mishandling of fatty acids, which are creating a lot of oxidation and issues in the cardiovascular vessels, things like that. All of that is showing up. Some trans fatty acid issues, again, mishandling of fatty acids in the diet. Commonly, you know, when we see a lot of this too, and you'll see further down some liver issues, but we'll also see this a lot with processed foods, fast foods, just getting a lot of like high omega-6s, 9s, but trans fats. But the one that people forget about is the oils they're cooking with. And so rancid oxidation of oils. A lot of vegetable oils and cooking oils on the shelves are already rancid, and they need to be bleached. They actually bleach them at the factories in order to get rid of the horrifying smells that those oils would normally have. So they actually have a very high trans fat content, a lot of the oils that people are cooking with straight off the shelves. So that leads to some major problems health-wise. And so that may be something in their diet got to check with, if they, depending on what oils they're cooking with, could be contributing to the issue. Bladder, you'll see a lot of different pathogenic infections down, probably have some bladder stress due to that. Anyways, so meridians are kind of helpful if you're seeing an acupuncturist, FYI. So that's kind of helpful information. Colon absorption, intestinal bacteria. You'll see further down in the reports a lot of bacterial infections and other issues. And we also see some leptin, insulin, digestive mishandling, and that can also be related to a bacterial imbalance. There are some key bacterial issues also we saw in the gut that are linked to thyroid issues, and as we scroll down here you'll see there's a major thyroid issue. There many times is a connection with thyroid issues and specific pathogenic bacteria in the gut. A lot of people don't know that. And/or ongoing infections in the body that eventually lead to an autoimmune issue that lead to also the type of thyroid issues we see in this report. So there's many different causes. Also toxicity. So heavy metals, things like that. Could be amalgams, some dental issues, leaching down into the thyroid. It could be all of the above. So literally, there's all these things that can affect the thyroid. Some of those other fatty acid issues, cholesterol issues, other things we were seeing here, those can also be due to thyroid issues, but we're not at thyroid issues quite yet. Cytokine, inflammational issues, immune system overreactive, homocysteine, we see that due to blood sugar, leptin, pancreatic liver issues. So we'll commonly see, and we'll scroll down to the cardiovascular section soon, and we'll actually see where homocysteine fits in perfectly. I was recommending also doing a little bit of a colon cleanse, but also B vitamins and working on gut bacteria, because that popped up and we had some infections. Gut bacteria synthesizes most of your B vitamins, and that'll also help with the homocysteine issue. Peroxidases, commonly we'll see that linked to thyroid issues. Need to balance that out with selenium, iodine, and some other mineral factors. And when you see his liver in a second, that's also related. Not producing enough SOD, glutathione, other endogenous antioxidants that are going to keep the peroxidase activity in check. By the way, we'll see a lot of early graying of the hair as well, related to peroxidases and other things like that, and not having enough enzyme resources to keep that down. This is a classic inflammational factor here as well. So there's definitely a lot of inflammation going on in the body. Most likely, besides the pathogenic issues, that is going to be linked to major oxidation of and mishandling of fatty acids circulating around the body. That puts a person at a lot of risk for cardiovascular events. Adiponectin especially linked with all of that and other cardio risks. Adiponectin can be helped a lot with bitter melon, regulating blood sugar and insulin. Also cold exposure, if you get the cool fat burner vest, it's called, you can put ice vests on and you can produce profound results with reversing a lot of Optimizing epigenetically adiponectin levels. That with bitter melon is like a game changer for a lot of things, but shifting adiponectin and other insulin and blood sugar related factors, it does other things too. If somebody has an overstressed, overworked, or dysregulated thyroid to adrenal or HPA, you got to get that back in check first before doing cold exposure, just FYI. Ferritin levels, again, low iron because of the diet. I happen to know that. Mishandling of fatty acids. Ghrelin, things like that. You can take hydrogen. Hydrogen would be fantastic for literally every biomarker, drinking hydrogen. But it actually has some interesting studies with leptin, insulin, and ghrelin, that combination. Bitter melon will help a little bit with this. Also intermittent fasting, so not eating for 16 to 18 to 20 hours. Trying to time your meals basically into a smaller feeding window should help get that back on track, along with a wide variety of other factors. So intermittent fasting is awesome for so many freaking things. Don't get too crazy with it. Start with like 3 days a week, 4 days a week. Keep it at that for a while, see how you do. And 5 days a week max, maybe like that. Once you're really tuned up and feeling healthy, you can even work out in the morning while you're still fasting and get even better results. Okay. So yeah, that could be potentially vegetable oil related here, things like that. Brain is not also handling fatty acids very well. Possibly fine-tuning to a ketogenic diet with a lot of other supportive protocols as well that need to be done could help his body to start to become more efficient and fine-tuned for burning fats. So changing the fast, changing the diet, intermittent fasting, getting a little more keto just for a certain phase of time. As we'll scroll down here though, there's a lot of acidity happening. So a lot of keto diets can increase acid in the body. Some imbalances there, so there's going to have to be a specific type of ketogenic diet that is going to include more whole nutrients, alkalizing minerals, things like that. Insulin, inflammation, liver, thyroid, classic stuff, so we expect to see that. Let's see. Yeah, again, this mishandling, probably mostly dietary related. Needs to shift a few things to help with glycemic index. There's some fibers, some mucilaginous fibers, even like chia seeds, honestly, and some other classic fibers, sun fiber, and stuff like that will actually help if you include that with your meal to buffer glycemic reaction in the body. Just a little tip. I think PGG, actually, come to think of it, is one of the trademarked things. Natural Factors, I believe, sells it, and that actually does really well for with glycemic and other stuff. It's a type of unique fiber blend, and that has some studies behind it. Glycine deficiency, in a minute I'm going to get down to the cardio and why I would recommend doing bone broth and collagen to get your glycine levels up. And there's many other benefits too. We'll get down in a second here. There's a lot of stress hormones because of the thyroid, adrenal, hypothalamus, HPA, which lights up later on our report. And so collagen, bone broth actually help balance out a lot of the HPA stress hormones. They correct a lot of deficiencies and give you a lot of glycine. And that'll help a lot with some of the cardio things we see later. And because the gut bacteria definitely has something going on, most likely that's why we are seeing some factors for synthesizing neurotransmitters not doing. In other words, his body's probably calling out for more of these because his gut bacteria is not synthesizing enough neurotransmitter factors for his body. So the body's like, hey, we want more of these things because, again, the gut biome is not doing so well. So generally, like a good probiotic, Strata Flora from Life Enthusiast, the website, is a phenomenal gut flora restore product. Maybe one of the best. And I've looked at a lot over the last 15 years. So a little bit of that, will probably correct this. He doesn't have to Most likely will not have to supplement with like 5-HTP or something like that. For example, most likely just getting the gut biome back in balance will fix some of that. And calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, fluorine. You'll see a little further down his bones are being affected. Body is robbing minerals from the bones, most likely, commonly these types of things, to buffer out a lot of acid effects in his body. So taking like a sustained release bicarbonate would be really good. Starting to pay attention to the pH Miracle Diet book by Dr. Robert. So funny, I can't remember his last name. My memory's been off last few days, strangely. Anyways, so yeah, pH diet sort of stuff. A product called Mincol, MICOL -Forte is a phenomenal mineral supplement like nobody knows about. And it's actually one of a kind when you look at what it is. And it is great for people that are running acid and running low in minerals, having bone issues, or just needing more buffering alkaline sort of phosphate forms of minerals. Iodine, strangely, is not low. Possibly that'll pop up in future reports. When you see his thyroid, normally that goes hand in hand with thyroid issue, with iodine issues. Definitely a major iron issue, which of course goes hand in hand with all the blood panel things we saw. And later on in the report, we'll see some blood oxygen issues. And mainly that is, and some antioxidant, oxidation, inflammation stuff. So germanium helps a lot with oxidation-related things. It helps a lot with immune issues, which we saw. There's pathogenic, inflammational immune stuff going on, spleen issues. Germanium helps with that too. It also helps with oxygenation in the brain. And we'll see that pop up on panels later, which is probably mostly inflammation affecting the microvessels, which we saw, which is reducing the amount of oxygen getting into the brain and peripheral tissues, and also low circulating oxygen levels because of the hemoglobin blood issues, so not carrying enough oxygen around the body. So that's extremely common, by the way, and very common for vegans and vegetarians because they're not getting enough of the heme form of iron, which you can now supplement with. It normally comes from animals, red meat, things like that. And they're usually not synthesizing enough B vitamins because their guts usually become a wreck because of most of the vegan and vegetarian diets from having too much plants and getting oxalates, pesticides, and a lot of other things. And then waning hydrochloric acid. I could go on. Don't get me going. Anyways, so EPA popping up again here. Oh, that's different. Just kidding. Different type of interrelated, but B vitamins, take some gut stuff. Vitamin E popped up because of all the cardio, inflammational, other issues. A lot of great studies on that. Now, this is an important factor here. Has both MTHFR gene mutations. This affects how your liver detoxifies, handles toxins, basically, metabolization, and other things too. Not just how you're handling toxins, but just overall a lot of metabolic factors. Let's put it this way. If you do not properly metabolize a lot of things in your food, it can also create toxins. So it's not like just ingesting toxins per se that leads to toxins. You can create endogenous toxins from just like regular food if it's not handled correctly. What is it, like 40% of people, I don't know, have that gene mutation. This can be turned on and off also by certain factors, environmentally and internally. So he's got both of them, and we'll see in a minute when we look at his liver panel that's clear as day, causing issues. When we saw some of those, and also the cardio and blood issues, could point to that. Dehydration, everybody has hydration issues. Hypoxia, most people actually have sub-hypoxia issues too, so that's common. But we know that from the low circulating iron and inflammation, that's why that's popping up. pH balance, also interrelated with all those. It's interrelated with everything. So we already talked about that. We could root this by looking at the comprehensive scan. We could actually, in the comprehensive scan, it'll actually tell you what ligament, what disc, what vertebra is having an issue. And you might be like, how does it do that non-invasively? How does it do that if I live in Japan and you live in, South Carolina? Well, guess what? It works. We could go over the science, but you know what I mean? When we, for years, have had practitioners and or our users showing their chiropractors and doctors and physical therapists and say, I have a problem with this particular disc and this nerve. And the practitioner says, oh, I don't believe you. How would you possibly know that? Oh, after testing, my gosh, you happen to be right. How did you know that? Well, I own a device called AOScan, or I paid for a session with an AOScan. That's how I knew. And then suddenly, lo and behold, the practitioner is interested in how this thing was able to non-invasively tell exactly what was going on with the person's musculoskeletal system. Okay? So, I don't care if you doubt it. I don't care if somebody doesn't believe it. This happens on the daily, and somebody ends up buying a system or paying a practitioner for a session, and they become a believer. So anyways, it's pretty cool and certainly very helpful. So you can take this to your practitioner and say, hey, I need you to do further investigation, or what kind of practitioner to see based on your report, which is definitely super helpful. So this is why I recommended that supplement Mincol Forte, because the body is robbing minerals from the bone because it wants to balance alkaline acid ratios. It's kind of a no-brainer, but so few people understand that. Let's see, bone mineral density. Gee, I wonder why. Now, when your body is not handling digestion very well, it's not handling, it's moving calcium and stuff from the bone. There's some other cardiovascular factors as well. You start to see mishandling of calcification or mishandling of calcium that can lead to calcification in other parts of tissues. If you saw in a cervical area, most likely it's because there was an injury already there, and so it's building up for that reason. There's also different sorts of bacteria that are very hard to test for, that are like nano-sized. And those can build up in injured sections of your microvessels, your epithelial linings, injuries, and anywhere in the musculoskeletal system. And that they also will eat up and bind on to calcium ions and things like that. A lot of people don't know that. So it can also be bacteria in that area, depending on how that tissue is injured, which reduces the blood supply and then makes it a good environment for pathogenic infections. So a little vitamin K2 along with some other mineral supplementation would be good. That's a good way to make sure that calcium is going on to the bones and it's not building up in the arteries and the vessels, which we were seeing later on in the cardio scan. Okay. These nerves, that's cool if you have the right type of practitioner who's like a a functional neurologist. They can usually go into more of that with you, along with the comprehensive scan, which goes into way more depth in these areas, different parts of the brain. You can bring all that data to somebody like that and be like, what's up with this? They'll run some other tests on you, and they could give you some insights. Parasympathetic, sympathetic, not the best combination when you are seeing some of the other cardio-adrenal HPA axis stuff that showed up in here. This really leads a person towards the inflexibility. It leads a person towards risk of having a cardiovascular event, basically. Little sidebar comment, just because somebody has like major cholesterol issues and insulin issues or blood sugar or blah, 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 they're eating like T-bone steaks every day, doesn't mean they're going to have a heart event, okay? Just FYI. It actually comes down to your sympathetic, parasympathetic tone, specifically your sympathetic tone. So if your body's like, what are you doing to me? And it's having a hard time, and it has a sympathetic event, or you have some crazy heart waveform coherent issues and blah, 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 blah. The question is, how does the body counter that? How does it counter that balance? So based on parasympathetic tone, if you have enough going on there for you, then you can counterbalance that and you'll prevent having an event, a cardio event, okay? So it really comes down to actually this aspect of the nervous system if you're actually going to have a cardio event or not. In other words, you may die based on your tone here. So there is ways you can boost that neurologically. Of course, you have to address all the other factors too in the body, lifestyle-wise and whatever. But I just wanted to throw that out here. So when you see that in combination, this, by the way, can lead to many. So the parasympathetic, sympathetic system are involved with a wide variety of processes. Okay, we could go on and on and on about that. I'm just pointing this out in the context of what we're seeing with the blood, what you'll see later on with the HPA axis, the liver, insulin, blood sugar, I think I said that already, and some of the cardio results we see. This is definitely not good to see. This means he could have a sympathetic event and then like drop dead because he just doesn't have enough going on here for him to counterbalance from that. So brain tissue blood supply, we always see this with blood issues, hypoxia, dehydration, pH balance, and just not carrying enough oxygen in the blood, inflammation, iron, classic stuff. Vessel, when you have some blood vessel issues, which you have for a lot of the reasons we talked about. Of course, it affects your brain, which is very dominantly needing a lot of oxygen because it burns up and uses so much energy, ATP, stuff like that. I think it uses 600 calories in, is it a 24-hour period? I don't know. No. It just blows through energy. Cholesterol, when you see the liver, and of course we saw already the cholesterol things. In other words, would he need to do like a liver flush eventually, and or some things that are preventing so a lot of this, when we'll scroll down, we'll see a major thyroid thing, we'll see a major liver thing, so mishandling of cholesterol, crystals, probably has some gallbladder stones and cholesterol stones. So probably needs to need a protocol for that. Later on, you'll see some uric acid crystals. You'll see some kidney issues. All that stuff is interconnected. A lot of dietary mishandling of calcium and phosphates, which we saw elsewhere on the reports. So there are some supplements that can help prevent and reduce all of that. What is the one from Amazon that's really totally unique? It's called like, I think it's like kidney OPC, or if you type in like kidney oxalate supplement, it should pop up. It's kind of unique. You can take that and actually helps dissolve that stuff. I would also watch out for oxalic acid in vegetables and nuts, seeds, chocolate. You can take a supplement that buffers that one I just mentioned. Instead of doing one of those fun pain in the ass stress tests and cardio stress tests, and you should also do a HPA, not an HPA, an HRV test. But you don't need to do any of that if you have an AO scan. It covers like all that. That would normally be quite costly to do. So definitely some heart issues, which we expect to see because of ion transport issues, calcification, inflammation, omega issues, fatty acid issues, blah, 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 blah. It's all interconnected. Organ issues, vessels. This is about collagen right here. So, taking collagen for basically running a collagen deficiency, which, believe it or not, collagen is also, in those types of peptides, are kind of essential also. They really are nowadays very essential for most people. So collagen, bone broth, things like that, that'll help with the vessels as well. There's also another amazing well-studied supplement for rebuilding the entire microvessel system. If you want to know about it, send me a message on my website below in the description. Adrenal issues, hypothalamus issues, the HPA axis. We'll see some more hormone issues, the prostate, and the thyroid you'll see is way off later too. When the liver's really off, then that throws off the prostate eventually for many reasons, especially with an MTHFR gene that also leads to prostate issues from mishandling a lot of xenoestrogens and toxins and stuff like that. Hypothalamus, adrenal stuff, when you see that, and other things here, epinephrine, HGH, insulin, testosterone, all these things, you can rest assured that this person is not resting properly when they're sleeping. One of the most least talked about things is the importance of sleep. All phases of sleep. So we know a lot about sleep now. The best articles on sleep, if you want to like understand everything we want to know about sleep that's important, just go to Ben Greenfield. Just Google Ben Greenfield sleep articles. Benefits of sleep. He has like, and look for some of his latest sleep blog articles where he just like combines all of his knowledge on sleep for like, I don't know how many years. And he just downloads you with like everything you possibly freaking know about sleep. So that is like the best way to get educated fast. Working on your sleep is one of the most important things to do for health. Many of the biomarkers here, honestly, a good amount of them could just change over like a couple months magically. If sleep was improved, all phases, it's that important. Endocrine system wise, regeneratively, detoxification. He has a lot of things going for him that are interfering with sleep. But all these things point to, whenever you've seen like just all these things I showed you, especially hormonally, guaranteed this person has a sleep issue, whether they think they're sleeping well or not. That's the other thing is you need to get a sleep tracker so you know every phase of sleep. This is a big missing piece basically. Somebody may feel rested. A lot of people don't feel rested, number one, but some person may think they're sleeping well is my point. And a lot of times we'll find that like a couple phases of sleep are like totally dysfunctional. And the problem is that is creating health problems for them right now, whether they realize it or not. That's why you want to get a thorough test like this, a thorough scan, and eventually whatever is interfered with, it will catch up with them and it will get worse in the long run. It could be when they're 70, 80, 90, because of that one thing that's thrown off in sleep, that one sleep cycle. So sleep is so complicated in terms of how it affects the body. I do have a lot of great sleep hacks and good supplements and protocols, so you can reach out to me on that. Anyways, endocrine system is totally a mess for the obvious reasons when we get down to the liver and the thyroid. And then it becomes kind of obvious when you see like an appendix going on here and adenoids. Just kidding. When you see an appendix going on there, and also like spleen, wherever that is, somewhere I missed it. Anyways, and then you see the bacterial and the pathogenic load. Again, spleen and appendix are probably working hard just dealing with a lot of pathogenic infections happening. And then also when the spleen is working harder, it's not able to build quality blood, and so we saw a lot of blood issues. There's the spleen. So again, normally when you see like out on both sides, so this was after the optimization was done, and you still see that it's out. That's not a good sign. And we just want to rule out that, oh, you're just having a bad day, bad week. You'd want to, of course, look a few weeks later with another test and see if it's still out on both sides. So something major is going on here in these two organs. It's nice to see on this part as on a scan. And this is under the system of immune system categorization. So, the spleen has many roles, the liver has many roles. In this case, what they're saying is pay attention to the immune aspects of the liver, the immune aspects of the spleen. Okay, so this leads back to probably getting bogged down with aspects of pathogenesis, most likely. Okay, and also with those other couple inflammational markers we saw earlier on. There's a couple causal factors and a lot of times toxicity and pathogens. And he has some real challenges with detoxifying with the liver, so that's contributing a lot to it. Creatine, his kidneys were off, which is probably one of the main reasons we're seeing creatine issues. Possible amino acid deficiencies, not digesting them properly because his liver, again, is struggling. So you're not doing well with amino acid. Is it conjugation? I forget the term. I don't really have like a functional medicine background, believe it or not. So I don't even know the term. But basically, when you're digesting, metabolizing amino acids properly. Uric acid, kidneys, changing the diet, all that stuff's important. Mishandling of minerals, acidosis in the body. Almost everybody has these couple things pop up. One of these, the liver gallbladder, like people need to work on that so much. Anyways, phase 2, as we can see, look at this. Like, how clear are these results? This is just awesome. It's not great to have this, but it is awesome when you see something like this, and you can literally say, okay, I think phase 2 is a problem with the liver, duh. And then especially when we saw that there was 2 mutations on the MTHFR gene mutation. So we saw that, and of course that is pretty obvious that MTHFR is for him a major problem, okay, because it's creating this. This means this person needs to do things for the gene mutation. He also needs to do things for upregulating phase 2 processes. The only way you can do that is with supplementation and diet. Quicksilver Scientifics is a good brand for helping with some of this. And Seeking Health is another great brand for MTHFR types of supplements as well. And modifying the diet. And airway resistance, I don't know. There were some other things that once he gets a little bit better, definitely instituting more walking great distances, doing more cardio, doing exercise with oxygen training, that would be good. And let's see here. Calcification in the prostate. Again, his body is, calcium's going everywhere. It's being leached from the bones. He has some endocrine challenges already with the liver, the thyroid, etc. So this person, along with all their other factors and the statistics on males in general, I mean, the chances of having he probably already has prostate. He does have prostate issue, but like having a major prostate issue is very likely, very, very likely. So immediately that's a red flag. So we'd have to, working on all of those other things will help the prostate. And then probably taking also a prostate supplement. Prosta-Chi, Prosta-Chi, that's a really good supplement from this Chinese medicine company. Check out all this thyroid stuff right here. Boom, 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 boom. Weird. That's okay. But we may want to, in other future tests, we'd want to see if that pops up, which I would probably guess might, some of these. Anyways, when you see something like that, especially blocked out, it's like kind of obvious. There's a thyroid thing happening. So, a lot of, this is a master gland, so it's going to basically affect almost every biomarker on this test. That's how important the upper master glands are. And also, this will become one of the main, a big contributing factor to mishandling minerals, specifically calcium, in the body. And that puts you at risk for actually a wide variety. You can link almost any condition to calcium, believe it or not. So those who do their research understand what I'm talking about. So calcium's a big deal, calcium ions. There's an amazing PEMF device out there you can message me about on my website by finding my link below and just sending a support. There's one that was designed for restoring calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium ion transport functions, and actually a lot more. And Dr. Linus Pauling, who is one of the most accomplished scientists of all time, I don't think anybody would argue with that, grandfather of molecular biology, so on and so forth, 30 years ahead of his time in minerals, in terms of mineral knowledge and research. He actually worked on that project with that PEMF, and that's probably one of the main ones I deal with. So it can help this individual in a lot of different ways, besides just using the optimization functions on AO scan. Scripting through allergies. Seeing a lot of pathogenic infections is so common these days, so it's just like whatever. I mean, there's so many things that that a person needs to build up with their health and their organs and all that kind of stuff before they can even really address the pathogenic load in the body. But I would say, because he's at a major for a lot of cardio risks, the product called Allimax, Allimax, and the Allimax formulation for the heart would be highly recommended and could literally save a person's life. That is no joke. And it has before. It has stabilized allicin in it, which is a compound from garlic. And there's only one company that ever stabilized it and patented it, and it is in that product. And it is incredibly powerful for wiping out almost any kind of pathogen in the body. So if you want something simple that really that addresses all these sorts of different pathogens and has great benefits to the body, I would start at a low dose, and you'd have to support your body in a lot of other ways, because when you go and you kill a bunch of pathogens in the body, or let's say you mobilize toxins, if somebody has not worked on their colon, their kidneys, their liver, their detoxification pathways ahead of time, they could be in a world of trouble. It could be pretty serious depending on how overburdened their body is, how their pathways are. So this is why you always want to work with a functional, trained sort of practitioner. You just don't want to go in here and start wiping things out and mobilizing toxins, and you could have a major herxemer, you could have worse reactions. So even something like allicin, stabilized allicin, Alamax, could probably get away with like low dose once a day with food. To slowly reduce things if you're taking a good probiotic, but you'd have to take a lot of other supportive supplements to handle that, because the die-off might be, if somebody's really loaded, it could be pretty extreme. So chemical toxicity, obviously, because what did we see with the liver, right? And many other contributing factors too, but kind of obvious, liver plays a big role in that, kidneys as well. Alcohol could be either drinking alcohol, but a lot of times if you see that and the person isn't, we do see that a lot with liver issues. Those pathways, those phases, especially with the presence of candida and other things we saw in there, the body can actually start to produce, through fermentation and processes like that, some like acetaldehyde. Basically their liver processing is not working properly, so they start to have a byproduct of forms of alcohol. It could even be this person is using too much hand sanitizer. By the way, a pretty good percentage of hand sanitizers use methanol, which is linked to blindness and neurotoxicity. And it can even kill a person. So if you're using hand sanitizer, make sure there's no methanol in it, and or try to find a natural alternative. There's a lot on the market from Mexico and other places that have methanol in it. Excitotoxins, mainly from all the pathogenic infections in the liver being completely overburdened. Excitotoxins means they're toxins that are excitatory to the nervous system, which also can lead to sleep issues, neurological issues, and things like that. Agitation, emotional instability, racing mind, all kinds of things. Inability to meditate in a cave. Pesticide toxicity, again, MTHFR, gene mutations, liver issues, what we saw. Lead, when you see lead levels that are high, and you see insulin and blood sugar issues, there's a very high percentage chance correlation with major cardio events when you see that combination. Based on how many inches are around their waist, so fat, combined with how much lead is in their shin bones, and you can actually get a scan of the shin bones. The combination between the two is something like a 70% chance or higher chance of a cardiovascular event within like 4 to 6 years, or something like crazy like that. I forget what the studies were. So lead, there's a whole link, just Google lead and cardiovascular issues. This person is going to have to do some chelation, moving the heavy metal out. Not just yet. This is probably causing some of the blood sugar, liver issues, cholesterol issues. It's like, your body can't get rid of the lead. I mean, it's like it's this vicious loop, basically. It's like, what came first? Now, lead, to be perfectly honest, though, is very prevalent in the environment. People get it from a wide variety of sources. So not from like lead in gasoline, because now there's unleaded. If you Google sources of lead, I would highly recommend you do that, because you will be getting lead from a lot of sources you didn't think you were. And it will lead to attention behavior issues, emotional issues, blood sugar swings, cardiovascular events. So also just a mineral protocol. So these heavy metals displace also different minerals that are good for your body. So also they cause deficiencies in key minerals. So part of also reducing heavy metals is taking the actual good mineral that this is an antagonist for. So you can, if you're trying to move it out, you don't want it to be redeposited. So you want to make sure that those receptor sites have the good mineral that you need. So just make sure you're getting all the minerals for your body if you're trying to do a heavy metal detox protocol. Nickel is sneaky. That can come from different areas. You can also get that in some sorts of salts, depending on how they're grinding those salts. The nickel dust can come from the steel grinders. So you have to be careful with some sorts of salts and sea salts. Platinum, same thing. That can sometimes be coming from sea salts, stuff like that. Preservatives. Acrimonium, some mold issues. Mold issues are common. We'll see that especially with MTHFR and liver issues, not being able to process out mycotoxins from past exposure, which could have been like 20 years ago, literally. And sidebar comment, there's things that can turn on and off genes. Okay, so could he have had a really bad mold exposure in the past that led to major phase 2 downregulation burnout, or some of the gene mutations? Absolutely, especially in the presence of pathogens, could 100% happen. It doesn't necessarily always mean like I was born with the gene mutation, you know, like that's definitely not always true. Genes turn on and off all the time. So probably a little trimethylglycine supplementation, methylcobalamin, since you needed that B12 anyways. Vegetarian, B12 deficient, blah, blah, blah. So some methyl donors will help a lot with gene mutations and all the liver phase detoxification pathways. He also had some neurotransmitter issues and gut bacterial imbalance in the biome, and some TMG will also help with that too. Toxicities, again, same thing. You get to these eventually. You can do some rifing protocols. You can text me about that, message me about that. You can work on all these things with AOScan, of course, obviously. But there's some really good supplementation too. And let's see, some toxicities. Viruses, super common. One of the best ways for every type of herpetic strain, which leads to a lot of other viruses, by the way, is actually olive leaf. I like Nature's Answer brand. You want to dose that at the same time every day, 3 times a day for like a month or two. And that is incredible for taking on herpetic strains. And combine that with allicin from garlic, stabilized allicin. Allimax or Alimed, MED, is the professional dose. That combination will knock out eventually most herpetic strains, which is quite an accomplishment. And it'll also knock out a wide variety of other viruses as well, just FYI. Yeah. So all these things too will be potential contributing factors to those immune system issues we saw earlier. Anyways, that's it for now. That would just show you how I would go through one of these scans. I'm not really trained in any sort of background. I'm just self-study over the last 15 years. But I just kind of wanted to go in and show you all the cool things insights you can get. And this is just one of the scans, by the way. So there are plenty of other scans, and even professional level features coming in a few months. So you can get really, really super in-depth. And you can do this with anybody around the world. Reach out to me if you have any questions, or you want some guidance on this technology, or if you're looking for training, I can direct you to that as well.